Hey guys, it's Friday, so be happy, right? Got a weekend coming up. And just heads up, by the way, I am not wearing the same shirt twice in a row, but I'm making these videos in advance. So yeah, I know yesterday the video I had the shirt on. It's a pretty nice shirt, right? I gotta say. And so anyway, I do change my shirt. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. So today, well, let me take a step back. Yesterday, you were supposed to read about nationalism and sectionalism and come up with some triple journal entries about your inferences and maybe comparing and contrast like the South point of view and the North point of view or the West point of view, which is kind of the same as the North, to like what their thoughts were during this time period from 1812-ish to about 1860-ish, which was during the first industrial revolution. And like I said, as we go through this, I challenge yourself to like really think, are we in an industrial revolution currently? Because I would probably say yes, but really maybe more technology revolution. Or you can even ask yourself, does your revolutions really ever stop? Like, I don't know. Like, that's kind of an interesting question too. But I digress. So today's focus is going to be on the growing tension. So yesterday you guys looked at like sectionalism and nationalism, and obviously nationalism is like the example I gave, like becoming a family and actually for once realizing like, hey, I'm part of this um, bigger picture, and I'm not like my own world, kind of like what they would think back in the like late 1700s and stuff. You always were like Virginians or New Yorkers or Illinoisans. Or whatever, and then you're now like they realize like, but we're actually part of a bigger country, which is the U.S. and all that great stuff. And we talked about why, or hopefully you researched a little bit more about why and stuff. Okay, so like, growing tensions. Okay, now this this like topic fascinates me because it's about like I'm a Civil War guy. Okay, I love the Civil War. I love Abe Lincoln. I guess from Illinois you have to love Abe Lincoln if you know anything about Abe Lincoln. But so growing tension is all about those events that led to the Civil War. And we're going to talk about them, I'm sure, more in depth later on during that unit because seriously, we're still feeling the ramifications of the Civil War today. And some people would probably argue, well, there's always that story of the guy down south, like hiding in a bush somewhere, and he's still fighting the Civil War. I'm just kidding. I hope that's not true, but who knows? To be honest, maybe it is. Okay, but I digress again. I do that a lot. Okay, so this section, the title from the book or article that we're reading is called Growing Tensions. And you're going to find out it's about, of course, the South and the North and them like starting to disagree even more about stuff. And if I recall correctly, this section really focuses on like the U.S. expanding, right? Because if we stayed the 13 colonies, okay, you'd probably argue or could argue that the Civil War would never happen, right? And this idea of sectionalism, sure, it would still be happening, but maybe more reasons wouldn't be added to make people more and more and more mad at each other, or parts of the country more mad at each other, or the issues that were causing it wouldn't keep coming and coming. But they did, right? And if I recall, and I hope I'm right, but this part of their chapter or talks about the U.S. growing, right? Because you probably have wondered, hopefully you've kind of wondered, I know we've kind of talked about it, like, if we were the 13 colonies at one time, how did we get all the other land to the west of the map? Okay, and I know some of us know already about the Louisiana Purchase, and I think we talked about Alaska being bought from Russia and like all that stuff. But like how we expanded, okay, and the problems that caused. And you might be thinking, well, isn't that a great thing that we expanded? Like that should be great. We have more resources and more land for people to live on, and yada yada yada, make it money. All right, and that's true, okay. But of course, there's drawbacks too, and one of it, a big part of it was obviously slavery. Like where are we going to let slavery expand, and like how that land's going to be used, and that kind of stuff. And another big deal, which we're kind of jumping ahead to next year, but because you'll learn a lot more about this next year, but is every time we add a state, okay, people from that state, they move or travel to Washington, D.C., right? And then they work in Congress. So the more like states we have, the more people we have in Congress and like the government, like the president and like that part of the government, right? The national government. And so like with us expanding, okay, um, people are fighting about that land and if it should be a slave land, slave state land, free state land, that kind of thing. And it really added tensions and problems to the states to fight about. And of course, the government handles it differently. Like, what were the issues the government had to solve? Because, of course, the federal government, like, that's a national thing. So when we talk about nationalism, like, hey, they're like the head of the nationalism part. Like, that's why we have nationalism. Okay, and so they're trying to keep all the states together under that. Okay, and so, like, what this section is talking about issues that came up with, like, us expanding and that kind of thing. So, pretty in-depth topic. Okay, a group's going to go more in depth with this later on. Okay, so read it and do, your triple journal entries, just like we've been explaining before. And I don't really have a focus per se on, like yesterday I told you compare and contrast. This one, I guess would maybe just, I don't know, like if I was going to think of one, I guess you could kind of think cause and effect, but I mean, you could be thinking of all these skills all the time anyway. So like cause and effect of like, well, because we got Texas, like this happened, like, as we expanded or that kind of thing. But, do your triple journal entry. So try to pull 2 or 3 at least from the section. Of course, on the column on the left, it's just going to be the textbook. And then in the middle, it's going to be your quote. And make sure you grab that out of the book. And then on the right side, it's going to be, of course, like your inference, right? And like why you think it matters. So anyway, hope you guys have a good Friday. And also, think of me today like I said yesterday, because right now I'm probably waiting for my baby, which is exciting. And I'll keep you guys up to date. So anyway, have a good weekend. See you soon.